Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and it's Thursday, week 5. We have a game tonight between the Falcons and the Bucks. Who you going to start and who you going to sit? Let's jump right in with the players you're obviously starting. Bijan Robinson is a must start. Based on where you drafted him, you can never bench him. So he's my RB6 this week, a slight downgrade from what we expected entering the year because he has been disappointing. Only 12.4 points per game. That's not what you signed up for. And the touchdowns are not hitting that often. Only one through 4 games. But in this matchup, I do think he'll play very well in the passing game. The Buccaneers defense allows 6.5 catches per game for 61 receiving yards per game to the running back position. So love that for Bijan. Allgeier is not a threat in the passing game. All those targets will be going to Bijan this week. So love his floor. In the last time he played against Tampa, he put up 17.3 points, and it did include 5 catches for 54 receiving yards as well. So love the floor, not in love with the efficiency. His yards per carry could be better, but hopefully the touchdown hits. I think there's a decent shot. The Bucks have given up 3 rushing touchdowns so far this season. So I'm still starting him. He's still top 10, but this week he's not top 5. I'm also starting Chris Godwin and Mike Evans with confidence. I think they've earned your trust. They're pretty much locks in your lineup because of the upside they offer. Both players have scored 3 touchdowns total this year. Chris Godwin looks like the number 1 receiver in Tampa. You definitely trust him more. I do rank him at 1 spot higher at wide receiver 8, and he is getting more volume. 8.5 targets per game, 6.8 catches per game, 81 yards per game, and 3 touchdowns, an average of 15.9 points per game from Chris Godwin. That is definitely a lock in your lineup. Last week wasn't elite, but you'll take it. Usually he performs well. And Mike Evans has put up a dud this year, but it was against Denver. He really bounced back last week. He had 14 targets, also found the end zone. So both players have the opportunity to go off any given week. If you score a touchdown 3 out of 4 times with these players, I think they've earned must-start status in your lineup. I'm also starting Drake London in this matchup. He's my wide receiver 20 this week because I think he goes off in the receiving game. I'm a little worried about the touchdown because if you look at this track record, his 4 career games against Tampa, he has never scored a touchdown, but he's bad on the road, excellent at home. He's had at least 120 yards receiving in both home games in his young career. So I think that's something to read into. If he plays well at home in a divisional matchup, it's a rivalry game. I think that is indicative of something to expect. So maybe he doesn't go over 120 yards again, but the last time he played them last year, he went over 170 on 10 catches. So it's happened twice. It could definitely happen again. Maybe he doesn't score a touchdown, but he's still averaging 18.6 points per game when facing Tampa at home. And this year, he is averaging 10.5 points per game regardless. So I think the floor is very safe with Drake London. He's the clear number 1 target for Kirk Cousins. And after a dud in week 1, he's averaging over 13 fantasy points per game over the last 3. So I trust Drake London right now. I like this matchup. If it was on the road, I would tell you to probably bench him. But here at home, I think the upside hits, and he's my wide receiver 20. I think he's a must start in week 5. I'm also starting both of the tight ends, though. Kyle Pitts is a top 10 tight end for me, number 9 this week. And I know he's been bad this season. He had a bagel last week, but in this matchup, he has a good track record. In all 4 career games, he has a minimum of 47 receiving yards in every single game, an average of 58 with a touchdown as well. 9 points per game in half PPR is what he averages against Tampa. So if you get that this week, you're going to be ecstatic with Kyle Pitts. I do think he has a safe floor of about 7 points. I think he will go over 40 yards receiving in this matchup on at least 4 or 5 catches. So I am starting Kyle Pitts, but if he doesn't play well in this one, I think you could consider dropping him. He has not been a revelation like some people were hoping. He still looks like a very risky play week in, week out. The role on this team is never safe heading into Sunday. So this matchup suggests he should play well, but if he doesn't, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Once you pass tight end 7, you're getting pretty desperate, and tight end 9 is nothing like to brag about for Kyle Pitts. Goddard is also on bye this week. So I would be worried about it, but I think you should start him if you have him. He is top 10, and you probably didn't get a better option off of the waiver wire. But I also think you're starting Cade Otton this week as a legit streamer off the waiver wire because of his track record the last 2 weeks. 13 total catches, 99 total yards, an average of 6.5 catches for 50 yards per game. If that's what you get this week, you're going to be very happy. It's just over 8 points, and that's what he's done the exact same stat line the last 2 weeks, 8.2 fantasy points in half PPR. So you're trusting the volume. It has been there. And with the receivers banged up behind Godwin and Evans, it looks like Otton will remain the number 3 target in this offense. So love that volume for him. The bar's pretty low at tight end, and that's why he is my tight end 10 this week. I would consider starting him if it was full PPR over Kyle Pitts, but I'm still going to trust Kyle Pitts one more week. I would not drop him just for Cade Otton. I'm not sure Otton performs this well all year long. So ride the hot hand. I think he's a fine plug and play this week, but I would still roll with Kyle Pitts begrudgingly against my will. There are some interesting flex considerations, though. I think both Tampa Bay running backs are in the flex conversation. I have Bucky Irving ranked one spot higher at RB24 back-to-back with Rachaad White at number 25. Neither player is safe. They're in a 50-50 touch split at the moment, and Bucky Irving is gaining ground every single week. So I think he's overtaken Rachaad in terms of fantasy value. He is averaging 8.2 points per game this season, and he does have a touchdown. He scored it last week. Things are trending in his favor. But Rachaad is averaging 8 points per game, mainly thanks to his role in the passing game. They have been very different players on the ground, however. Bucky is far more efficient. 5.8 yards per carry this season from Bucky Irving. Compare that to 2.8 yards per carry from Rachaad. It's no wonder he is losing his job. And last week they both had 10 rush attempts. They both put up 49 yards on the ground, and Rachaad maybe saved a little bit of his job security. However, I think it's dwindling. I think you would rather bet on Bucky, and Rachaad has not scored a touchdown. He has. Irving is a little bit more interesting in terms of upside, but neither player is safe. This matchup is not elite. The Falcons rank number 17 against the running back position, and although they have given up 3 rushing touchdowns to the position, they all came last week against the Saints, 2 of them from Taysom Hill. So not sure I totally buy into this matchup. I'm not in love with it, and the touch split is not safe enough to fully endorse. I'd rather go Bucky Irving, but I'd rather just bench both of them for players I can find off the waiver wire at wide receiver. I'd much rather go with a high upside swing like Romeo Doubs off the waiver wire then start one of these Tampa Bay running backs. But if you're looking at Darnell Mooney on the opposite side of the board, I would rather go with the running backs. I do not trust Darnell Mooney that much, and although he has been better than Drake London from a receiving yards standpoint, averaging 56 yards per game, London only 50 yards per game, he's a bit touchdown dependent. Pretty boom bust this season, but he is averaging 9 points per game. The floor is decent, and he's not the worst player you could take a swing with. But I worry about the touchdown hitting this week. I think the Falcons will move the ball well, however, fail to score touchdowns. And with the good matchups looming for Bijan, London, and Kyle Pitts, how many targets are actually available for London this week? So I'd rather pass. I don't trust him that much. And at wide receiver 37, I do think you could find a better option. For instance, Romeo Doubs off of the wire. So that is why I'm benching him, but there is legit flex consideration for the Tampa Bay Bucks running backs as well as Darnell Mooney. I also think Baker Mayfield is a very legit streaming option. At this point, he might be your starter. He is the quarterback 3 on a points per game basis this season with 21.5, but I'm not sure it's going to continue all season long. It feels destined to let you down at some point, and that's why I only rank him at quarterback 12. I don't fully trust Baker this season, but the matchup is okay. The Falcons give up 15 fantasy points per game this season. That ranks 17th against the position. So middle of the pack, pretty average, but it does come with 41 rushing yards per game. And if that's what you get from Baker this week, then he probably gets close to cracking 20 once again. But I do worry about the touchdown efficiency. The Falcons have only given up 3 touchdowns passing this season. So probably does not score more than 2. And I do think it's a very low scoring game in general. I think Baker is fine just because the touchdowns usually go through the receiver position, and that helps him out a lot. He has 10 total touchdowns on the year, but I don't think he has an elite ceiling this week. I do worry about it overall. So Baker at quarterback 12, you could bench him, you could start him. He's on the fence, and more likely than not, you're probably benching him in a 10-team league. But if it's super flex, I would definitely start him, and I would also consider Kirk Cousins only in Superflex. He's my quarterback number 18 this week, and the matchup is top 6. A lot of it is because they give up 40 rushing yards per game to quarterbacks on the season, as well as 4 rushing touchdowns in 4 games. And Kirk Cousins is not mobile. You're not getting that from Cousins this week. So any upgrade he would get is completely nullified because it's Kirk Cousins. And that's why I don't trust him. He's the quarterback 27 this season on the year, an average of 10.6 points per game. So very low floor. I think he'll be good at moving the ball, but not in the red zone. I don't think he scores many touchdowns, but I do think he throws for maybe over 250 yards in this game. I think London could go over 100. Bijan should be catching passes, as well as Kyle Pitts with a good track record here. So maybe he cracks 300, but without it, I don't think you're getting a usable game from him. He's definitely a quarterback I'm benching in one quarterback formats. So you don't even have to grab him off the waiver wire. I'm not coveting Kirk Cousins at the moment, but I'm benching both the Bucs and the Falcons defense. I think it's a low scoring game, but I don't think either defense gets a lot of turnovers, and I think there's a lot of field goals in this matchup, but they do move the ball well on both sides of the ball. So I think they're very average starts this week. I don't think you have to drop anyone you already had in order to start Tampa or Atlanta on defense. So defense number 16, 17, not must starts, no thank you. And RayRay McLeod is a little bit interesting, but not safe enough to start. I'm benching Darnell Mooney. I'm definitely benching RayRay McLeod. He's my wide receiver 55, and you can definitely do a lot better than that off the wire. I'm also benching any Bucs receiver. Jalen McMillan is out, so is Trey Palmer, and there's no way you're starting Sterling Shepard. They're all unranked for me this week. I'm also benching Tyler Allgeier. He's just not getting enough volume to trust. Only 7.5 touches per game. That's not high enough, but it's just enough to be annoying for Bijan owners, and I'm sure you're pissed with his average 50 yards per game from Allgeier, but he's pretty efficient. I understand why they use him a little bit, but not enough to trust in fantasy. My RB41 this week, not going to be in your lineup. I think if you have Younghoe, go ahead and start him, but Chase McLaughlin, not important. Let's move on from the kicker position, and these are my start-sit decisions this week. I'm starting Bijan Robinson, my RB6, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, my wide receivers 8 and 9, Drake London, my wide receiver 20, Kyle Pitts, my tight end 9, and Cade Otton, my tight end number 10. But I'm considering to flex Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I'd rather go with Bucky Irving, but I'd rather keep them both on the bench unless I'm desperate. I'm also going to bench Darnell Mooney if I can, as well as Baker Mayfield most likely. They're all just streamers this week, and I don't think you have to start them if you have better options. But good luck to you if you have to start them. There is a little bit of upside, albeit pretty touchdown dependent. I'm benching Kirk Cousins, though. I'm also benching both defenses, RayRay McLeod, any Bucs receiver other than Godwin and Evans, as well as Tyler Allgeier in this matchup. Those are my start-sit decisions, but my final score prediction is that the Bucs win this game. Final score 20-19. I think it's going to be very close and come down to field goals. Overall, this series is basically tied. The Bucs lead at 31-30, and in the last 10 games, they are favored with 7 wins to 3 in favor of Tampa. They have been a lot better in recent history in this matchup over the last 5 years. Previous to that, the Falcons went on a 5-game win streak, and it could definitely pivot either which way. So I think it's really a coin flip. I think it's going to come down to a very tight margin, definitely within a field goal. And because the Bucs have played better this season, I trust their offense a little bit more. I think they will win, but it will be a low score. I think they score 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals. Meanwhile, the Falcons move the ball better than they do, however, settle for 4 field goals themselves, only 1 touchdown. That is the deciding factor. A 1-point margin in favor of Tampa Bay. The line is the Falcons -2. So if they win, I think it's probably going to be a push, but I think the Bucs win straight up. I would take them to cover the spread at least, but I think it's a low scoring game. The over under is 43.5 total points, and my prediction is only 39 points. So I'm taking the under this week. I'm taking the Bucs to cover and win outright, and that's going to be it for this video. But before I leave you, I also give you a bet every single week, and here it is. I feel pretty safe about 3 of these 5 picks, and Bijan Robinson I think will capitalize on this good matchup. I think he will be catching a lot of receptions and torch them for at least 50 yards receiving. So I found a scorcher. The line is 39.5. I think he will go over 40. I hit the over on Bijan in the receiving game. I also hit the over on Drake London in the receiving game as well at home in this matchup. He has 2 games with at least 120 receiving yards against Tampa. So the line was less than this. I hit the over on 79.5. It is a scorcher. I was tempted to go over 100, but that feels a little bit too bold of a take. So I'm still getting a profit boost here. I love the line on Drake London. I do think he goes over 80 receiving yards this week. I also think Cade Otton continues his high target share and does go over 4 catches this week. I think the volume has been safe. He's averaging 6.5 catches the last 2 games, and this one feels very safe. That one is an average bet. But these last 2, I think, are the deciding factors. I think it's a 50-50 call for Bucky Irving. They have given up some touchdowns, and Bucky Irving has scored. Rachaad White has not. He's looked a lot better in the run game. So I hit the over on Bucky Irving touchdown. That one's a coin flip, and it probably decides this bet. But if I'm right on Kyle Pitts, if he puts up at least 47 receiving yards for the 5th time in a row against Tampa, then this is a smash pick. You should be taking the over on 40 receiving yards for Kyle Pitts. I think he will hit it. I know it's risky and it might burn me. He might put up another bagel. So I think it really comes down to Bucky Irving and Kyle Pitts. Wish me luck, but if I do hit, this $4 bet turns into $342. The profit margin is 85 times my initial buy-in. So yeah, it's probably not going to happen. I go all or nothing with 5 picks, but if it does, we will be laughing to the bank. Wish me some luck tonight. And if you want to join me on this bet, you can use Nice and Blunt on SignUp on Underdog.com and get your first deposit matched by 50%. If you deposit $20, they'll give you an extra $10 to play with for free. So head over there, use code Nice and Blunt, and I'll see you next time in the next video. My name is Adam Riancho, and if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching Nice and Blunt.